as a meeting professional, I can't be expected to go through 100,000 different keynote presentations, searching for the right person who's going to get my audience where they need to be. So you absolutely 100% have to have great partners to help you sift through the incredible amount of amazing speakers that are out there to find the one person who's going to help your audience.
Today's guest on the Keynote Curators podcast is Jessie States. Jessie is the Vice President of the MPI Academy. Jessie is in charge of MPI's professional development strategy and manages their portfolio of educational opportunities. In our conversation, we cover current and future trends in the meeting industry, and we really drill down into content curation and how meeting professionals can develop programs that expand the capacities of their attendees. We appreciate you joining us. Listen in, you'll be smarter for it. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining in with us on today's version of the Keynote Curators podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, the president of the Keynote Curators. But what's most important today is our guest. Jessie, can you say hello, introduce yourself, and let us know a little bit about what you want us to know about you?
Sure. My name is Jessie States. As part of my career, I manage the education team at Meeting Professionals International, everything from our signature events to a 1-hour podcast or webinar. Our team oversees all of the education for people who plan meetings, conferences, and trade shows. On a personal level, just like to help people. In my professional life, that is where I find the most joy, is in helping members of our community to enable themselves and their careers to bigger and better places.
And, we've worked together and we've been able to collaborate on fortifying or bringing, great speakers to some of your programs. You said you're in charge of MPI's professional development strategy. And I don't know, I would say the portfolio of educational opportunities. You got the digital events, you got the educational experiences, the professional certificate programs, the educational partnerships. What for you is the most rewarding and also the most challenging in the context of all the changes, the pandemic, the dynamic rapidity of change and transformation in the industry? What would that be for you?
When I look at what's most challenging, I also see where's the most opportunity. And where I see the most opportunity is in reimagining what in-person experiences can be, and looking at all of the ways in which we are able to connect in a digital world and identifying what's missing and how we can amplify that into an on-site experience that's truly transformational.
That is so well said, Jessie. I really mean it, because I love the phrase, what's missing. And I must be honest, it's taken me a lifetime to relate to that phrase as an opportunity versus something being wrong. Because when we think of something as missing, we're like, oh, we're short of something, we're lacking something. And that might be the case, but it's more from a context. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I've worked with you and I know that you come from this place. What's missing that if it were present, what difference would it make?
That's precisely right. And I see so much that excites me so much. Once we've identified something that's missing, it's something we can fix. It's like a doctor that diagnoses a disease. Once the diagnosis is there, here are the solutions. Here's how we're going to make you better. And I feel like in identifying that in a business environment, or in our case, in kind of a meetings environment, that's where opportunity exists.
And how does that show up? Does that show up in content, in deployment, in strategy and execution? How does that, maybe even an example?
I think all of those things. And so what I've spent a lot of the last year around is trying to identify what the new value proposition is for in-person meetings and events. And very specifically trying to identify what's missing element to the digital experience so that we can amplify and change what we do on site at meetings and events. And even thinking through some of the things that we're starting to do differently for our meetings and events. We're going to have our WEC in Mexico, Caribbean in a few months. We're thinking about the idea of having 2.5 hours in the middle of the day with nothing to do. To just give people the opportunity to experience the destination. We might not start until 10 a.m. We're just really reconsidering the ways in which we determine what our format looks like, our agenda, our schedule, and how are we taking those open opportunities and creating curated experiences for our participants to experience the destination in unique ways.
Yeah, I see that the events that I go to, I frequent events all year long, all sizes, all locations, all industries, and all over the world, all locations really. I'm on my way to Europe in about 3.5 weeks. Very excited for that. Recently came back from the Pacific Northwest and, all over the place, just like you. And what I have seen is a little bit of what you're talking about, particularly for attendees. How do you curate the experience and how do you provide an environment and an ambiance where serious work can get done, people can get educated, people can forward whatever their personal or organizational initiatives are. And inside of the ongoing changing demands of the world, society, health and well-being, and giving people more breathing room in the agenda while still keeping your eye on providing education credits and important ideas that they can have access to that they normally wouldn't if they didn't come to the event is an art form. And it just seems like out of the pandemic, that's been taken to the next degree, especially the free time part.
Totally agree. I think that it also is putting even more pressure on the general sessions and the speakers who help to curate the content that helps to frame the minds of participants for their journey. And so I'm curious to hear from you what you're seeing in terms of changes when it comes to the types of delivery methods from keynotes and what's trending right now when it comes to changing in that arena.
Jessie, here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that typically my clients are requesting a much more precise and much more exact type of message. I use the word tailoring. Now, has there been customization? Has there been tailoring in the past? Yes. But if you combine that with the requirement now of having a 30-minute keynote or a 45-minute keynote as opposed to a 45 or a 60-minute keynote, the stakes are higher and the importance of that time becomes even richer. So while we're in the process of curating speakers, reviewing them, narrowing it down, all along the way, there's a confirmation or a reconfirmation of, is it on message? Is it going to create the powerful context for the rest of the conference? Are people going to have something valuable to take away? All those things existed previously, but right now I've seen it become packaged and presented in a more potent manner, shorter time span, and an even more precise demand on really hitting the bullseye of the messaging. That is to say that 10, 15 years ago, somebody would tell their story about climbing Everest or whatever it was. And it wasn't that was enough. That's what worked in the context of that time. And now with the internet, TED Talks, videos accessible all over the place, people want that curated individual experience. And does that jive with what you're seeing?
Absolutely. And we also, even looking at adult learning theory, and every single person in that audience or every single participant is thinking, what's in it for me and how do I apply this constantly throughout the delivery of any content? And that's amplified even more when it comes to a session that's a general session, because typically for example, when you have breakouts, you get to choose where you want to go and you choose a subject that you're interested in. With a general session, you're kind of forcing everybody to be in a space together, and not everyone is choosing that content for themselves. So it's even more important for the keynote or for the general session speaker, to your point, have that message, because constantly asking themselves, what's in it for me? How do I apply this? And if they're not answering that the whole time, you're going to lose people.
Yeah. And, it's so true. In the breakout sessions, people choose and they tailor and curate their own curriculum for the day or for the course of the program. The general session, as the event producer and the curriculum creator and designer, there's more pressure. And how do you have a broad appeal, but also being able to have a specific takeaway and a specific value to attendees? Some are new in their career path. Some are very far along. Some have changed industries, but are coming from a different kind of mindset or a different angle. The other thing, Jessie, that I'm seeing is, I'm going to say it in very poor grammar, more better panels and more better moderation. So I've seen buyers who are interested in having a panel discussion or a fireside chat, which is a little bit of a being pulled through line from the pandemic, right? Because a lot of the virtual ones were done fireside chat style, right? And what I'm seeing is that the moderator is as, if not more important than the speaker themselves, because they're the ones that are going to carry the through line. They're the ones that are going to keep the guardrails if the conversation goes sideways. And they're the ones that are going to channel the host, the organization producing and putting on the event to make sure that their message is underscored and fortified. I don't know if you're seeing that as well.
Moderator job is one of the hardest jobs in the entire conference when it comes to content, because at the same time, you have to be incredibly specialized and good at what you do. You have to have incredible interview skills and the ability to guide a conversation in positive and safe ways. And you also have to practically be invisible doing that. You can't steal the show. And so you can't. I'm just so impressed with the work that moderators do, because at the same time, trying to not be seen as someone who's taking over a scene, for example, but at the same time guiding that conversation.
It is an incredible talent, and you and I, we kind of work in the same coin but two different sides. And when I'm looking at moderators, it's exactly right. They don't want to insert their personality in there. It's kind of like a very good referee. You want to be invisible, but you have to be present. You don't want to be a protagonist, but you are part of the cast. And it's a real challenge. So when I work with moderators, especially in some, let's say, more celebrity type names and higher ticket speakers, just to say it in a really direct way, you need to have a corresponding level of moderator, not because they cost so much, but it requires a more facile, more sophisticated way to manage the conversation. And so if you look at people who are television hosts at night or newscasters, it's a deeper appreciation, especially on live TV, or even if it's a live recording, like David Letterman having Cher and Madonna in their heyday, where it was kind of a wild card, anything could come out of their mouth. And how do you have it be entertaining, keep the focus on the guest and the speaker, but still move it along? It's really incredible. Let's move on a little bit from here, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
All righty. So you've received the Pacesetter Award from the Events Industry Council. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's an honor that recognizes emerging leaders and industry supporters. And you made the list of the 25 most influential people in successful meetings in Trendsetter magazines. Those are quite achievements. So what's so far the career highlight that you're most proud of?
I feel like I have career highlights all the time, and that's why I don't know how to answer it. And definitely having earned the Pacesetter Award is one of them. But I feel like every time I host an event or every time I do this podcast now it's a career highlight. I don't know if that's just because of the lens that I use or just that I'm a kind of a positive person, but I feel like I'm hitting milestones like all the time. Like every week I have a new career highlight. Someone sends me an email and says, "Hey, you helped me out a couple of years ago. It was great." Oh, career highlight. And so I think that's why I'm having the most trouble answering this question, is that I kind of feel like I have those all the time.
No, well, you answered it. I mean, look, the past is prologue, and you can stand on your laurels, not rest on them. But it's okay. Not unsatisfied what's next, but you are a positive person, and you are a let's move forward and progress. And so I understand how it could be hard to mark it down. And look, I know, having worked with you, not only how seriously you take what you do, but you feel that it's an honor and a privilege to serve the community and be a part of a bigger picture. The work you do is incredibly important. And I'm not just saying it blowing smoke up your butt. People come to these events and these programs, and they walk away in a different place. They walk away with expanded capacities and transformational ideas that then can ripple out to others. Sometimes in the day-to-day, you get caught up in the micro and you lose the picture of that. But I know the work that you do and the detail, whether it's about the content and making sure the messaging is on point, or making sure that a speaker can get from 1,500 yards away on one property in a convention center to their sound check on time, and that they're taken care of and served. So I know that it's all a highlight for you. But
I think what I like most about our community, and the reason why I invest so much time in our industry, is that everything is magnified. If I help one meeting professional, then I'm actually helping 1,000 attendees, 10,000 attendees to have a better experience, to learn more, to be better at their jobs, to advance their careers. And so then if I help 2 meeting professionals, like how many people am I actually helping? And then if 3,000 people come to WC, like how many people are we really helping? We're helping millions of participants at all of these different events that these professionals are hosting to have even more beneficial and meaningful experiences for all of those participants. So it's amplified when it comes to the number of people that you touch in any given moment.
Yeah. And again, it is that butterfly effect, right?
But you do the same thing, though. I mean, you receive that same value. You're bringing these keynotes to these events all over the world. How many people are you helping every day by bringing and suggesting and helping to create the strategy around what a meeting professional does?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I often relate to myself or what we do in my company as a pathway, right? We're an avenue and a pathway for transformation. And I've said it a million times. It's on our website. I believe a speech should and could change a life. So, that's where I stand. I often am not fully in touch with it all the time, but that is a foundation of what I do. So let's move on. I believe next month, correct me if I'm wrong, is MPI's European Meetings and Events Conference. And I think it's in the UK.
It's in Brighton. Yes.
Okay. Brighton. Want to bring us a little bit of a sneak preview or, what is the most important, exciting thing that's going on with that?
We're really focusing on the future. We've spent a lot of the last several years, not within our industry, but I think all of us have spent a lot of times thinking about the past. When are we going to get back to normal? When are we going to have things return to 2019 conditions? There's always this look backwards, much like our own philosophy, what we've been talking about. I think it's time we've got to shift. We got to start looking ahead. And so the focus really is on an exciting future, the renaissance of our industry. We really believe that the meetings of tomorrow are not going to look like 2019, and they shouldn't. And so how are we helping to prepare meeting professionals for that future?
And in that vein, where you're looking to the future, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, but if you want to go deeper or get into the deep end here a little bit, how has the event design, the experience design changed in the post-pandemic world looking to the future?
Well, what we're seeing is a need for deeper engagement among individuals, deeper engagement with experts, deeper engagement amongst peers and non-peers, deeper engagement when it comes to diversity and accessibility, deeper relationship building, and deeper connections. And all of those things, according to all of the science that we know, happen better in person. And so how are meeting professionals designing experiences that enable these connections and engagement to happen in safe ways that are also friendly for all people involved? And so it's really taking a look at ensuring that there's enough break, enough mindful reflection, enough activities that connect people in ways in which they want to connect, and re-looking at the area of wellness, not just as it has to do with physical wellness, but in all the dimensions of wellness, including intellectual wellness, social wellness, all of these different areas, spiritual wellness, all of those things that we need to be designing our events around.
Do you have a methodology of measuring that, deepening the engagement, deepening the connection, deepening all of those areas that you mentioned? Do you have a way of measuring that?
Well, everything can be measured. It just depends on what the goals of the meeting and event are and how engagement can help to deliver on those goals. So what our focus is how do we create meaningful experiences for participants, a participant group who is wanting a lot of different things than they've had in the past.
Right.
They want to experience the destination. They want to leave a positive impact when it comes to social and environmental footprints. They want to find new connections and deepen the connections that they already have.
Right.
How can we utilize these things to meet business goals and objectives? So it's taking what our participants want and giving it to them in ways in which we're actually also delivering on results for our business. So in terms of making those meaningful measurements happen, It's all about taking what our attendees are seeking and marrying that with what our business needs and finding the solution there.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, God, I don't want to minimize it, but it's kind of like 2.0 or 3.0, or the foundation of what's important to a lot of meeting professionals is staying on top of trends, being up to date on improving experiences, being safe mentally, providing great content, having people connect, get to know an area, the environmental sustainability impact and all that stuff. But the challenge is the new context, right? People want that because it's familiar, but it's not 2019, as you said. So, we touched on this earlier. Perhaps it's a little bit of, in the new context of the post-pandemic, maybe more free time, starting a little bit later, having people go out onto town in a food hall for a meal on their own instead of providing it, logistical nightmare maybe. But I mean, are you finding that the members of MPI and your colleagues are experimenting because there's so much at stake, or are they kind of taking a cautious approach?
It's a mix. From an industry perspective, meeting professionals are not often first adopters. And that's not because they don't like to experiment. It's because experiment means risk. And as an organizer, you want to minimize risk as much as possible. And I don't just mean kind of risk in terms of safety and security, but
right, no.
Of any kind of failure at all, or something going in a way that was not anticipated in some way.
Right. It could kill the future of the event down the road.
That said, we are seeing a lot more experimentation. And the fact that we're seeing a lot more smaller, more regional events right now in this moment can allow that innovation to percolate. And there's less risk associated with trying something new or different with a smaller group of people than there is with a 10,000 person citywide event.
Sure.
So we are seeing meeting professionals begin to break out of that kind of aversion to trying something new, particularly with groups that have often been the groups that they will come back to us and say, my attendees will never do that. This group of people or that group of people, they like things the way that it's always been. What we found is that most people don't like things the way they've always been anymore. And so even some of those stodgier groups that were more traditional in their approach to a meeting or event are starting to see that their participants are becoming more open to experimentation in the ways in which they experience an event.
Yeah. I mean, how do you stay on top of the trends? I mean, do you have your own mastermind group? Are there resources you access? How do you stay on top of the trends?
I enjoy following trends in a variety of different industries and thinking about how those industries could apply to our own industry. So that's the first way that I really try to stay on top of innovations is
anyone's in particular?
Childhood and high school education, technology. I love following CES and events like that. I just read all the press releases and see what's coming out and thinking, what 5 years from now, would that impact a meeting?
You're following the societal wide conversation about open AI?
All of these things, yes. And wondering, where that will take us when it comes to the future and how will that impact the future of bringing people together, whether that's in a digital, in-person, or dual environment. So it's really kind of looking outside of our space because innovation does happen here, but innovation happens everywhere. And then just keeping up with what our members are talking about and what they're doing. We've got 10,000 meeting professionals as part of our community of members. And then we've got an even greater community of people who access or come to our webinars and things like that. So just keeping in touch with what they're saying and doing. We've got quarterly research that we do. We've got trends outlooks that we create. So it's really gathering all of these data points from a variety of different places to try to stay on top of things.
Right. And then the good old fashioned is go to events or talk to colleagues. It's a sidebar. You might be calling about information on a property or a location even. And, you start talking, oh my God, I just came from this and this event in Halifax and they did this and it's so cool. And, I like to use the word borrow. There's no stealing, you borrow and you make it your own and you put your own kind of stamp or seal on it. And that's how the idea snowballs and transforms and maybe becomes commonplace.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk about keynote speakers for a minute, if that's okay. And the importance of messaging. As the person who brings in keynote speakers for your events, how do you make sure that they're delivering the right message or the right speakers there? What is your kind of sensibility, methodology, strategy, thinking behind, speakers who make an impact in a meaningful way and provide your audience with practical takeaways that help them grow professionally and personally. And how do you know that that's going to happen when you go through your choice and you end up with your final selection?
Well, after we decide with our theme and where we want our participants to go, we really take a look at who are they when they enter your event, and are they a different, better version of themselves when they leave? And thinking about ways in which every single aspect of our event can help through that growth process of what's happening on site at your event. So once you've kind of decided what their exiting behavior is, whatever that might be, then it's all about looking at every single element of the event and determining how does that break, how does that meal, how does that keynote, how does that breakout session get them closer to where they want to be when they're leaving. And if I focus on that, then I'll get a lot closer to making some really good decisions when it comes to choosing our keynotes for the event itself. And then I rely on people like you. There are a lot of people out there who say they're amazing keynotes, and there are many amazing keynotes out there. If I articulate well to my incredible partners what it is that I'm looking to accomplish, then I really need them to help me to find the speakers that are going to help me get there. Because as a meeting professional, I can't be expected to go through 100,000 different keynote presentations searching for the right person who's going to get my audience where they need to be. So you absolutely 100% have to have great partners to help you sift through the incredible amount of amazing speakers that are out there to find the one person who's going to help your audience.
It's music to my ears because I go through it all the time. And there's no problem and nothing wrong with it. Do it yourself. But the context is I may know that a technology speaker is being offered for an agricultural group because they grew up on a farm, even though everything about them that you read and see is all about Silicon Valley and some app that they developed. But you don't know that they were the president of their 4-H club in high school and went on a scholarship to the, agricultural and mining state school and, milked cows and did all the work around a farm and drove a tractor, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a way that they could relate to an agricultural group, a mining group, whatever it is, a dairy, anything in that realm. But at first glance, you might not get that kind of context if you're just looking,
Yeah.
And the other side of it is you have site visits, food and beverage, security, registration, signage, a plethora of things that I could spend the next hour naming. And if you start to go down the rabbit hole of watching videos when it's not your main job, although it's an important job, things begin to get absorbed and saturated and kind of sound the same. So it's, music to my ear when you say, hey, a partner, and look, let's take the case that every keynote speaker is amazing. It just might not be a fit at this time right now for what you're looking for. And, sometimes it's not about self-doubt, Jess, but sometimes you're like, God, they seem great, but I'm not 100% certain. Let me ask, or let me see. And, whether you're willing to be validated or countered and say, no, what, they're off for this one, maybe for something else. That's what the collaborative experience is. So it's music to my ears. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wasn't necessarily looking for that, but I know how important it is. I hear about it all the time. I got a text today on the way home, taking my daughters to school, and there was the name of a speaker, and it was like, what do they talk about? And there's the message question. Now, I did provide it, but they were asking for something a little bit more specific and related to on the heels of a conversation we had in the last few days. So, it's right there from you're not alone, and you're at the forefront, at the avant-garde of this industry as far as curriculum and content goes, and how important the messaging is with keynote speakers and aligning with the organization. Let me ask you this. You do a lot. And I know it's hard to pick a highlight. We already covered that. It's hard to pick a highlight. What's the most rewarding part of it, of what you do?
I think that I kind of touched on it already. I just want to help other people and be successful. And whether that is finding the perfect keynote for one of our general sessions, or whether it's just helping to elevate someone's voice whose voice hadn't been heard, but who has a really strong message or has a lot of wisdom to share. whether it's just having someone come out of a breakout session and they feel like their world has changed. All of those little moments add up for me. And that's what makes what I do so incredibly valuable to me.
Yeah. And I can tell you from my experience, Jess, the community of meeting professionals is so interconnected and so interwoven and so naturally willing to help and support and provide whatever anybody's looking for that the best they can. And it's just extraordinary. I mean, it's almost as simple as ask and somebody will show up for you, and whether it's going to get you exactly what you need, when you need it, how you need it, but they're there. And the spirit of generosity, I've experienced that with you. We've had a recent event in Vegas, and we had a moment, and your spirit of generosity just came out, and the transparency and everything. It's just extraordinary. And that's something that is rewarding for me to see and be included in. So let's do this. Let's go. We're almost at the end here. I've got a few we'll call them fun questions. I don't know. I like to call it 20 questions. We often don't get a full 20 questions in. So we're going to take a collective breath. And we covered some important topics, and there's more to cover. We can have you back at another time when, things have transformed. It's word association type, rapid fire type, but you don't have to do it in one word. You can, be yourself, right?
I am very nervous about this.
Okay. Who is your favorite keynote speaker to date?
No, I can't.
I can't. I've never heard of that speaker. I can't.
Nope.
All right. Is that a pass? What did they do on a game show? Pass?
Pass.
Okay.
We have so many incredible partners and speakers that I know and love. There's no way possible, even if I wanted to answer that question, that I could.
All righty. Fair enough. We'll come from a different angle. 5-star Hawaiian beach resort, quaint and quiet Airbnb nestled among the Pyrenees in Europe, or 5-star luxury hotel smack in the center of Tokyo. You choose.
Center of Tokyo.
Center of Tokyo. Okay. You could do calligraphy. You could go to a Japanese league baseball game. You could learn how to make sushi, all that kind of stuff right there.
I was at the beautiful Aloft property in Tokyo last week.
Oh my goodness gracious sakes alive. That is awesome. How much fun was that?
It was amazing. We have some great partners with the Tokyo CVB. We went and did some education there. And I love that city.
Wow. Congratulations. If money or time was no object, where would you go to that you haven't yet traveled?
I've never been to Buenos Aires, and I've always wanted to go there. So that is number one on my list.
Well, when you're ready, you know who to call, and I will be giving you the full lay of the land.
Thank you.
Anytime. I'm looking forward to it. 3 must-have items when traveling.
Passport, extra pair of socks. Ooh, what would the last one be? Maybe like an electrical converter.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the core virtues of Jess States. Electrical converter, socks, and a passport. Utility, functionality, and solid foundation. From there, you can build anything.
You can build anything up.
And that's who you are for this world. What's the worst part about traveling?
Ooh, that's a good one. What is the worst part about traveling? I think I miss my dog.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. They're animals. The first thing you would do or buy if you won the lottery?
Oh, the first thing I would do, I would make a donation to the MPI Foundation.
Okay, great.
That is MPI's nonprofit. They've donated over $1 million to the community in the last 3 years to help MPI members. And I have promised myself that if I were to ever come into some money, I would make a significant donation to the foundation.
Awesome. What's something that you like to do, but you suck at?
Ooh, I like to draw. I doodle all the time. I'm terrible at it, absolutely terrible at it, but I love it. I like to draw.
Keep doing it, right? We don't want to lose the kid, the artist in us. What's the last book you read?
The last book that I read, I just finished reading. This is a book by one of our Canadian members about the labor shortage. It's a labor crisis in hospitality and events industry. So a lot of the books that I read, well, I do read leadership books and things like that are related to the industry.
What's the last movie you saw?
Oh, geez.
or Netflix binge or streaming binge?
Right now I'm watching Chicago Party Ant, which is a great cartoon, but it's not for your children.
No, no. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I did not have breakfast this morning. I had some coffee.
Coffee. Okay. Black, sugar,
Black.
black. Okay, cool. And if there was one speaker that you haven't yet booked that you would want to book, regardless of fee, availability, et cetera, who would that be?
I mean, it would have to be like a former president or prime minister or, someone just, I'm very interested in politics, the power of politics. And so, if budget was no object, I'd want somebody who had held a high level political position of any kind.
All right, well, pick one or two.
Yeah,
okay. I'll make it easy for you. It could be George Washington and Abraham Lincoln.
There you go. All right. Okay. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. I don't know how George Washington would come off these days. I mean, he kind of had, he had wooden teeth.
Yeah. Although you being who you are would have glam, you would have the glam package. You would have hair, makeup, and wardrobe.
To glam up George Washington. Yeah. Fine, it's George Washington.
For sure. What do you prefer on a night out with friends or family? Simple, easy pizza or family or a fancy meal?
I always like a fancy meal.
Yeah. All right. I hear you. In Tokyo?
In Tokyo. Yeah, it has to be in Tokyo.
Okay.
Spare no expenses.
Yeah. Well, I think that we're going to end it on a fancy meal in Tokyo as a point of destination that we can then pick up for the next time we'll have you back. I'd like to continue this conversation because it empowers me and it informs me of, what meeting professionals are thinking, and not only what they're thinking, but what the people who train them and impact them are thinking to provide that type of education. So I can't thank you enough for being with us and all of our listeners, and for the great insights and the curated insights, if you will, that you've provided, and the time you spent with us, and just thanks for being a yes.
Thank you.
Visit our website at thekeynotecurators.com. There you'll find dozens of videos of speakers that are a perfect fit for your event. If you'd like to reach out directly, please click on the link below in the description. My name is Seth Dechtman, and you've been watching Curated Insights.